Good evening and welcome to the Laughing Monkey Music Show. Tonight we have Jizzy Pearl on. How you doing today, man?
I'm good.
Good, good. Glad to have you on. We are here to talk about all of your books. Actually, you've been putting them all out now and selling them. And they've been doing seems pretty well according to your Facebook page. And I'm finishing up the last one in the trilogy, and I'm really enjoying it. I think I think my favorite thing is your the writing is more. I guess you call it your Stephen King style, your horror story. I think I'd like to see you do that more in more books. That's
Yeah, it's fun. It's fun to be able to release that Kraken and do something crazy like that, and be very visual and graphic. It takes some artistry to be able to do that. And I use Stephen King because he's the best example
right.
of someone that can illustrate gore to your imagination.
And I think, I mean, listen to your writing and your songs and lyrics over the years, so you grasp what you write. But it seems to really strike a nerve when you because you can get so graphic, but you also have a real hold on sarcasm and a light and dark view of life. So in your horror writing, it comes off perfect. That's probably the most
Well,
enjoyable thing.
I mean, you're reading that third book, and by that time, I'd sort of refined whatever style I had, and now it comes out pretty easy, and yeah, the books are jizzypearl.net. That's where you can get them. And my first one sold out, but I do have the other two available, and I'm writing a fourth book, and that's kind of it.
Cool. I had actually read the first one a long time ago and had it. It's been a while. I actually want to get the whole set again. Are you going to have them printed up again so people can buy more?
I don't know. I don't know. It's a lot of money, and right now I'm doing Quiet Riot pretty much every single weekend, and I just I my plate is full as far as gigging and new music and whatnot. So I tend to do stuff in bits, like write a new record. I pretty much focus everything
Mhm.
on that, or a book. I focus everything on that, or a tour. I work on that. So that's kind of where I am.
All right. Well, I get that. I mean, in the industry of records and books, it's kind of hard to put things out. I was just kind of curious if that was in the works. I mean, I downloaded this actual book. I usually do from authors. I usually buy books, but
Uh-huh.
for this, I actually had downloaded it so I have time to finish reading it in time because it's on my list of like 10 other books to read. I'm one of those guys that reads three books at once. So,
It's not the typical Tommy Land thing. You know what I
no.
mean? I think maybe some people think it's going to be kind of like your regular book, rock book, but it really isn't. It's actual writing. I mean, it's actual, you know, writing
Mhm.
fiction, and so I'm hoping some people will dig that.
Well, you have a yeah. Anybody who knows you, I would assume they wouldn't think it'd be a Tommy Lee book. Just knowing you and your lyrics and your songs and who you are, it's not usually the person that you are. But in these stories, so is a fourth book going to lean another mixture? Is it kind of a so kind of still kind of
Again,
working it out?
half and half,
Yeah.
sort of personal reminiscences of the musical time, say, of the Sunset Strip in the 80s, along with, straight up weirdo fiction.
Which is like my best part. So when you're writing, are you so you say you're sitting down 100% just writing? Are you not just like jotting down ideas like when you write a song? Yeah, you put it off to the side, like, hey, I have an idea. When I'm on tour, write a paragraph, put it aside so you don't forget it. How does writing compare to like lyrics to your books now?
No, it's done pretty much spontaneously. If I have an idea for a story, um, I maybe will jot down a couple of notes, and then the next day I'll just do it all in a few hours. I'll just kind of do the whole thing, and then obviously revise over and over and over until I like what the finished product is.
Well, that's pretty interesting. So with songwriting, do you just do the same thing when you do songs, or do you just kind of
Songwriting's, if I have a project I have to work on, I'll start with the music first, get my structure, and arrangements, and then try and get a chorus. And if I don't get a good chorus, then I kind of ditch the whole thing because riff rock isn't my thing. I'm not a great guitar player.
Mhm.
So I need that chorus. I need the payoff to continue. And then if I get the chorus, then the verses are easy.
You- Your songwriting with is what's interesting to me. First off, I would say that you're as organized the way you do it. Just because everyone writes differently. So asking you about your writing together with your music is been a question I wanted to ask you about. But most people usually write a riff and then they do this and that. The fact that you're very methodic about it is interesting. So when you were earlier on though with the other band parts of the band members, were you always the same way? Like with like Love Hate or other bands? Can you do that?
Oh, I don't remember. I don't remember. It was such a
It's all
long
right.
time ago.
It's not a test. It's more the
Yeah.
evolution of your writing of you as a writer. Because to me, I'm thinking this is a big picture. Because you know your lyrics, combination of song, you're writing a book. You just posted recently that it was going to be a movie. It could have been a
Well,
movie. String
it's
writing.
like
It's writing
anything.
is what it is to me.
It's like anything else. You get better at it. You write 100 or 200 songs, and then you finally get a good one. But you do the exercise of making the cake. After about 200, 300 cakes, you finally get something that's tasty.
Yeah, you are actually doing it with so like the weekend, a lot of the weekend gate flyouts now with Quiet Riot for like until hopefully COVID keeps its ugly head away now.
Well, until, yeah, our
The
next
variant
imminent lockdown. Yeah.
is what it feels like for everybody right now. I mean, I think the best of both worlds is a lot of the bands like you guys get to do the flyout gigs and then go home and fly out and still can play out is a good meet in the
Well,
middle right
it's
now.
it's not easy. I mean, it's tiring. You have to sit in an airport, and sometimes, a lot of times, planes get delayed, and you're just sitting. 6 hour delay to get to Fargo. I mean, what do? You got a mask on, and you're just walking back and forth. Oh, should I go get McDonald's? Or because it's not like Whole Foods has a little kiosk in the airport.
Well, that's the thing. I don't think it's a glamorous by any means. I meant that as opposed to you being on a bus, when like every day
Well,
just driving nowhere. At least you have a break. We can go home and recoup a little bit.
yeah, I mean, they both have their advantages and disadvantages. Being on a bus is cool in the sense that when you finish the gig, you can go to bed if you want to. You know what I
Yeah,
mean? You can literally go in your bunk and read a little bit of a book, 3 or 4 pages, and just katink. Some people can't sleep in the bunks because they're kind of coffin like, but
yeah.
I never had a problem with it.
That looks like, and I know some bands like to just they go to a hotel, and I've heard they like to they'll go take a shower and they'll go back and get on the bus and go to sleep because that's what they're
Well,
used
I
to.
mean, because it's not the 80s anymore. You know what I mean? All of us rock guys had our heyday of wine, women, and song. I mean, that's just everybody.
Well, I don't think it's easy by any means. That's my whole point is that people expect you guys to go out, and that's one of the things that on the show I've spoken about. It's hard to still get up and go
Well, it's
perform and do the
energy,
next
man.
day and to
It's
do it.
it's it's
And
energy. I think that fans somehow put us in a time capsule, and they want to see the guy that they remember from the video in 1990. You know what I mean?
yeah,
And that's most people can't live up to that visual. Let's just face it.
well, you shouldn't have to.
Time munches on for most of these guys, and so yeah, I mean, you have to look as good, you have to sing just as good. Like Quiet Riot songs aren't easy, so I have to bust ass to hit all those pesky notes.
Which is good. It's hard. I guess that's one of the things that's hard is being a performer nowadays in the rock genres. You've got the critics, the expectations, and everybody else can go to their jobs and change and gain weight and look and switch jobs. And it's okay to be a different job, but God forbid somebody sings a different band. Sports teams can switch players. It's okay. But like, you grieve, hopefully Quiet Riot, everyone's kind of calmed down enough where they can just enjoy the band. You guys sound great.
Well, I mean, all of the guys have been doing this for a long time, and it's just it's it's not routine. I don't want to say it's routine. It's not routine, but it's like a job. If you had a job and you drove to that job,
Mhm.
you wouldn't you wouldn't change your route every single
No.
day. You get on the 405, get off on blah blah blah. You know what I mean? And that's your job, and you do your job, and then you go home. And it's kind of the same with all bands. There's a certain warrant is basically they have to do a certain number of catalog songs.
Yeah.
They may not like them, doesn't matter. That's what the fans want. And Dokken and Slaughter and QR, it's the same thing. I mean, you can't do a QR gig and not play Mental Health.
Right.
You'd be booed off the stage.
Right. And that's something I think some of the fans I'm hoping after COVID are a lot more loose about the criticism, of different bands that do this, that play out, whether the members change or the members look different, or they've gained weight or they're too skinny, or, it's, there's a lot of people that just get tired and just want to enjoy the music itself and the,
The internet is just something that you can't take personally. I mean, on websites is phenomenal. I mean, the viciousness of it sometimes, but I mean, you can't take it personally. Do I really suck? Am I really fat? You know what I mean? It's just, you just go do your gig, and that's what you got to do.
I agree with you. That's one of the reasons why actually with the show we talk about, because it's ridiculous. And there's a lot of fans that don't think like that. You have sang your entire life. Have you had to do any changing with your voice now? Because it's still strong. A lot of singers have had issues with their voices as they've gotten older, just because you get older. I'm not even saying, rock and
It's
roll.
no, it's the truth. I mean, there comes a time when singers get older and they have to tune down to D. You know what I mean? If they were
Mhm.
an A440 or E flat, they tune down to D. I mean, AC/DC is a perfect example. They were an A440 forever and ever, and only recently, in the last couple of years, I saw footage of them tuned down to E flat. And Brian Johnson has the hardest job in
Oh
rock.
yeah, I can't imagine. I wonder
And
if that
so,
affected his hearing affected it too. His
yeah,
hearing
so I'm
loss
saying
probably.
that you can't, I'm certainly not the same guy that I was 30 years ago. I'm certainly not the same. I don't have you know what I mean? But it's just, it boils down to cardio, running, taking care of yourself, and doing the best you can. You know what I mean? I mean, some guys just don't have strong voices, or ever have,
Right.
for singing live. Some guys that are really, really good in the studio, but they can't do it live. They can't play 2 or 3 gigs in a row because they choke. And it's just the nature of their voice. I mean, I've done 5, 6, 7, 8 shows in a row, and I'm just lucky that way.
Yeah, you have a strong voice. It's a very distinct voice, and it's always been hanging in that like a pun, like love hate. But it's been so great because you've been able to go into some of the bigger bands and sing and pick it right up, and it's fit your voice because the way it stands out. Like when you sang with Rat or you've done other bands, like Guns, it's you, but with that band, it's not you
Yeah.
trying to be another singer. Because sometimes the other bands have other singers. You don't need to compete. You didn't need to compete with Stephen Piercy. It's great that you
No,
did your thing. You know what I mean?
there's guys that are doing more of a karaoke
Right.
version when they front the bands. I mean, I've seen it. They do all the ad libs in the songs, and they do the, you know what I mean. Then
Mhm.
it's not really you. I mean, you have to. It's you up there singing, regardless if it's not your song. So you have to inject a little bit of your own personality into it, or else
Right.
you're just a karaoke guy. And
Which gets
then
like X Factor.
that wouldn't be fun for me.
No. Well,
It was a good gig. It was a good paying gig. I mean, I've said this before, that I made more money, excuse me, in Rat than I did when I had $1 million contract with Love Hate. It's the truth,
no, I've
because
heard. Yeah.
the record companies are indentured servitude, and unless you go mega mega platinum, you never make any money, or they string you out. I remember I did this gig years ago, and we met Rick Nielsen from Cheap Trick. And he had been doing Cheap Trick for years and years. And he came up to us and he goes, "You know what? I finally paid back CBS." Bands get signed to these 360 deals.
Those are the
which
worst.
basically they take a piece of everything. They take a piece of your merch. They take a piece of your um, everything. I mean, it's just so the bands, these young bands, they're not. I mean, they already have the odds stacked against them, and then they don't make any money. I mean, it's sad, but that's the record company, and everyone wants to be on a record company, and everyone wants to be signed because they think that that's that's the ticket to fame and fortune, and it isn't. It's just it's very transitory. You're signed for a few years and then you're not. You know what I mean? They let you go, and then you have to fend for yourself. And hopefully you're not saddled with millions of dollars of debt.
Well, the fact that you can be an independent artist nowadays and not sign anything and distribute is, and everyone's making more money doing that than having to be stuck with these record. They're like record banks, is what they were. They're just or a record
Yeah,
mafia.
I mean, it's tough. It's tough for any musician. It's tough for young musicians. It's just because of the preponderance of social media and the way that it just can influence you and stuff like that. It's far better for me to be in something known and something that I know, and people are going to see this band knowing what they're going to see. They're not going to see me in leather chaps trying to be David Lee Roth. You know what I mean? They're gonna see these Quiet Riot songs played, the way we play them,
Right.
and that's it's good. I prefer that.
Well, yeah, I mean, it has a brand, it's a product name, and like you said, all these guys have been in Quiet Riot for many years. You come in, you can do, quite justice on the vocals, so it's what you're getting when you come in. It's a fun night. Is exciting still for you though? You sing? Is that like still the part that the payoff for you when you actually get to go out and play and
Yeah,
sing?
of course. I mean, I get nervous before every gig. I mean, not nervous, but nervous in the sense that you get that nervous butterfly.
Mhm.
You're on the side of the stage and they kick in and you're looking out and there's a big thousands. How can it not affect you? But once you get out there, it's like you're a lightning rod for them. They vibe off you and you vibe off them. And when you're in it, when you're in the zone and it's great, it's awesome. You know what I mean? Because you feel like you can do or say anything. I mean,
Yeah, I know what you're saying.
within reason. And yeah, you have them. They're rooting for you, and it's great.
That's good to hear because reading what you write sometimes it feels like it's you've really gone through the ringer at times and it feels like everything's so heavy. It's good to know that you still get a lot of
Well,
enjoyment from it.
I I would never want it to be like I was in a two in the morning cover band where you're just background music and no one cares
Right.
about what you do, and then you don't care about what you do. You're basically you've got the alien inside you and you're just going kill me.
Well, you don't have that, and I think you're in a good spot because you do have a good band that you're with. You're still doing solo stuff too. So if you have solo songs you want to write, or a situation comes up, you can do an album, and you're writing
I
books, and
have
your
a
books
I
are
have a
picking up.
Golden Robot record in the
Right.
can,
Right.
ready to
So
go, and a fourth book. I mean, yeah, I mean, it within the framework of doing the Quiet Riot thing, which is I don't want to, not nostalgia, but I mean, it's 40 years old. Let's face it. Those songs are old, but I get to do new stuff as well. So it's a good balance because people want to hear those songs. Trust me. I mean, whatever you may think about Quiet Riot or Come On Feel the Noise, it's every time we play the song, 10,000 phones come up.
it's a fun song. There's nothing wrong with just having fun. You don't have to be, reinventing the
Well,
wheel all the time. And
it's an iconic song.
the album stuff, how's that work out now? You're going to tour and you're going to ride this, see where COVID goes with Quiet Riot, and then with the
Well,
solo
I
stuff,
want to
or
play as long as I can. I mean, I
yeah.
don't want to be Debbie Downer and talk about, any sort of lockdown scenario looming or anything like that. I don't want to talk about that. It could happen. I hope it doesn't happen. I hope it doesn't. I only hope we don't have to deal with that for a long time. You know what I mean? Because we have a lot of gigs. Everyone does.
Yeah.
All my friends are playing every single weekend because all these shows have been pushed for years. It's been years of rescheduling these shows. So all my friends are playing 2 to 3 times every weekend. I mean, Night Ranger's going out every single night. So the longer we all get to go out and do what we do for a living is awesome.
Well, I hope it holds off, and I hope at least at the very least you guys can bounce from places to place where maybe it doesn't get as bad, or other places. I think maybe we can nip it in the bud here. But like you said, we don't know. But the fact you're pretty diverse though. But I think you doing writing and doing other projects is good, because I think we've learned now there's no guarantee that people can play out live or tour, or the world's going to be the same for a lot of industries, not just
Yeah, I
music.
think that, I mean, a lot of musicians have a couple of jobs. They don't talk about it, but some of them work for string companies or cable companies. You know what I mean? As
Mhm.
reps. They don't talk about it because it's not very glamorous, but they've got a couple of sources of extra income. And the books for me have been nice in that regard, in that, you know, been able to sell them, and they've been selling good. And a lot of people are rediscovering them. I mean, not many people are like you that actually had the book a long time ago, and go, oh, I already knew about it. I mean, that it's people's short attention spans. So yeah, I mean, unhappy. These books were written a while ago, and so it is nice for me to reissue them and have some excitement. You know what I mean? And have people discover that I'm really a writer, and I'm not just kind of some two-dimensional rock guy, that just can write about chicks and beer.
Well, you're a smart guy, and but you write about other stuff
Although
too,
there's
which I
nothing
think
wrong about writing about chicks and beer.
I know. But that's one thing you do is you balance both sides. So I think one is always more fun for people to follow, and the
I would
rocks are
have,
life.
but a lot of people aren't readers, but I'd like to get them to open the book up. I mean, just even keep it next to your toilet. You know what I mean? And if you've got you know, a 5 minute poo in you, that's, you could get through one of my stories.
That should be the jacket of the book.
And
That's
the
great.
story will probably be poo related.
It could be. Depends. Although
So,
the first story opened some eyes for me. I didn't even know down to the background of it, your job there doing the photography there for the.
oh yeah, yeah.
I don't want to ruin. I actually don't want to tell. Do something because the exact stories, because I actually don't want. I know you've said it before, some of the stuff out there, but I want people to discover the stories, like actually go each time, and
Well,
for the first time, where they're going, and not be like
a
preconceived.
lot of
Because
musicians have odd jobs, that they have to do to make money. Like I drove strippers around at night. I mean, one time, I'll just tell you this one story, and it's a
yeah,
great story. I got the call that we had somebody called at some hotel in downtown Los Angeles, and they wanted a girl right now. They wanted a girl, and I got my car, but I got stuck in traffic to get to this girl's house. So it took me longer than expected. And she was bitching at me, we're going to lose this. Because what happens is at a certain point, the guy in the hotel will just call another girl.
sure, right.
So I'm racing downtown. We get to the hotel and we're running up the escalator. I mean, everybody, the girl I'm with, everyone knows what's going on. The hotel
Right.
concierge, they all know that she's
You got the
an
first time.
escort. She's an escort, and I'm the long-haired dude that's, her wingman. And so we get up to this hotel, we open the elevator, and we rush to this room, and there's a dude that looks just like me standing in front of the hotel room. They had called someone else.
Oh,
That's what I'm saying. They had called someone else, and this dude, because I showed up late, there was a girl already in there,
wow.
and this dude was kind of smirking at me. because he knew now we're going to make the money and blah, blah, blah. And so I'm sitting there and the girl's phone's ringing from the guy, from the dispatcher. You know what I mean? We just lost whatever, $300 or
Right.
$400,
Right.
blah, blah, blah. And I'm sitting there feeling like a goat. Anyway, all of a sudden, these two big dudes come up out of nowhere and go, all right, let's go. It was a sting, like on Cops, where
Oh,
they have cameras in the room, and they were busting this guy and the hooker. And because I showed up late, we didn't get busted. And we just backed off. We saw what was happening. The dude, the guy that was me, her driver, was freaking out, sweating. He probably had drugs on him, you know, because it's late night. So
right.
he probably had some speed. And we're going downstairs in the escalator, and I'm looking at her, and she didn't want to know, she didn't want to acknowledge that I just saved her. You know what I mean? Because I was the idiot that was late. We're not going to jail. They're going to jail.
Like the Mr. Magoo of pimping. That's like totally accidentally saving the day.
Getting chased by crackheads, getting chased by knife wielding crackheads, being in a very expensive hotel room, being chased by some rich Korean businessman yelling in Korean that, you know, but the thing is a lot of these guys don't understand that, you know, you can only go so far. What are you going to do? Call the police that you're a married man and you just hired a hooker and the hooker took your money? I mean, you're going to
Right.
end up like Hugh Grant, in other words. So it's just, you know, so when you're in a situation like that, you know, they can't really do anything because they can't, because they
Right.
can't go to the cops because it'll, you know, they'll get busted.
That's crazy, man. You must be glad to be past that part of your life, though. At least looking back, it's good for stories. But
Well, it
who you
was,
are, as large as you were in the band and not having that financial backing, you know, if you had a challenge, like a lot of artists do have other jobs, because there's nothing wrong with it. But what are you going to do? Work and then have, like, yeah, if you say you're at Home Depot, I know you've said Home Depot in the past, you couldn't work there. Point is, what are you going to do? Be working, even doing your job, be bothered all day by people going, "Hey, it's Jizzy Pearl." People giving you crap about it or wanting your autograph, or you know what I'm saying? You really couldn't work in a main job either.
I know a guy that was a famous musician, and I won't tell you his name because I don't want to embarrass him. But
Mhm.
he went broke, and he was a big star. I mean, he had gold records, and he ended up having to work at Starbucks. He was trained as a fucking barista. You know, they put him through barista college. And this is a guy that was on MTV. I mean, more than me. And one day he's making lattes, and two of the dudes from Warrant came in, the
Oh,
band Warrant, and he
yeah,
freaked out and ran into the back and hid because it's
it's
humiliating.
embarrassing, right?
Yeah, I'm just, you know, I mean, it would suck.
Well, it would suck if you were actually running a corporation and then all of a sudden you're working at kind of Starbucks and all your coworkers from that corporation see you working like any kind of fall from grace, you know, in some kind of level job.
Yeah, I mean, look, most of the guys that were in music that had, like me, that had even had record deals, never made
Yeah,
much money. None of us made a lot of money. We made some, but not a lot, not enough to retire off of. You know what I mean? You just have to be smart with what you have and sort of have your investments along the way, and not touch them. You know what I mean? Just kind of have a little nest egg, because you never know. Like, for example, us
just
locking down for a year, can't even leave the house.
no.
No more gigs. No more gigs. Who'd have thought? No more gigs. No, no, there's no more. And I, you know, and that's so. Yeah, I mean, most of the people of my genre never made any money. I never made a whole lot of money, but it was the experience. It was like being on, you know, a ship sailing around the world and seeing exotic ports of call, and having my way with the Tahitian natives, and you know what I mean, drinking wine out of a coconut, and sailing the seven seas. That's the payoff for what we got. I got to do that. I got to say, and I'm still doing it. I'm still doing it. So that's, it's worth it to me. It's killer.
Well, yeah, the fact that everyone has some success. I like to see. I mean, like I said, some guys got into IT, some of the guys got into woodworking and sound. A lot of those bands, they had to switch into careers too. And now that it's picked up a lot of these weekend gigs, a lot of those guys are able to just do music again, which is nice. You haven't had to do that, even, lucky. And a lot of guys couldn't write either. Some guys, it's painful for them to write lyrics for a song. You know that your peers, it takes them forever to write a song, whereas you seem quite prolific. When you want to sit down, not everyone can just sit down and say, as we were talking about earlier, I'm gonna write a story. I have an idea. I'm gonna write. Some people will be like, I'm gonna look and I'm not gonna have nothing all day, or what I mean. A lot of
Well,
artists can't do
sometimes
that.
it's like that. Sometimes it is nothing. I mean, not. Elton John once said that he only takes 45 minutes on writing a new song, and if after 45 minutes it's not good, then he throws it away. I mean, I've done that. I started writing and just stopped because I could just tell it wasn't going anywhere. It wasn't tickling my fancy. So yeah, I mean, everybody has that. I mean, not everyone wakes up every morning and goes, well, I think I'm going to write this book called The Shining. I wish that I was that good to be able to, now how about this killer clown? Let's call it It. It's just, how amazing is that guy? It's just amazing. He's like Mozart. He's like Beethoven as a writer. I've never read anything that sucked by him. It's
What was
crazy.
the book he had? Was was it Eyes of the Dragon, or it was almost a little different that he had? It came out
Oh,
as a
I didn't
college.
read any of that kind of
No,
gothic
I read it. I read that
stuff.
one. Yeah, that he did. No, he did. It was him. It was still kind of Stephen King. It was a little different though. That's
Well, like that movie, the sequel to The Shining, was great.
mhm.
I loved it. Forget what it was called, but I mean, I'm just, he's just one of those guys. There's a lot of writers nowadays. I'll buy a book on Kindle because I'm cheap, and and uh,
And you love
and
spelling mistakes, right? Does that make you crazy?
I no, I look at the reviews. I didn't used to, but a lot of these guys that I used to love as writers, some of them just, you can just tell. I mean, 1 star out of 5, 1 star out of 5. They're rich and they've lost their edge and they don't care. They can put out schlock
Mhm.
and they know that they'll sell 100, 200,000 copies.
Yeah.
But that
Yeah.
jizzypearl.net, that should be stamped on your forehead like bum fights. Remember bum fights?
Fights. That's a sad. It will actually be on part underneath the video. So people will say, look at you.
Well,
They will
cool.
see it.
This
All right.
has been a nice conversation.
Well, it was good to talk to you, man. Thank you for having